drove the train on moving up our timeline for getting off active duty and for retirement and getting into this race. And that's the reason why I'm still here. And if nothing else, that reason has only expanded. Now, there's one more quick line here I'll just address right quick. It says Russell is being funded by special interest and extreme right-wing groups. Of course, 87% of his contributions come from outside the state. Okay, yeah, that's true. Extreme right-wing people just like you. 35,000 of you in Pennsylvania and outside of Pennsylvania. Yeah, the fact of the matter is, when you get it around Johnstown, anybody who's got money, for some reason always donates to Jack Murtha. There's a little money thing there. So that's a reality. But he's very concerned with the fact that only 13% of my donations came from here in Pennsylvania. Well, let's take 35,000. 13% of 35,000 is 4,550 roughly. That's 10 times the number of Pennsylvania donors Jack Murtha had. So, and of course, when you look at his donors, they all have names like Kuchera, Migliacetti, or they work for places like PMA Group, Kuchera Industries, and of course the whole slew of defense contractors that he represents. So, yeah, you guys are those right-wing extremists who are keeping me in the fight. But, we came up a little bit short. Obama-mania pretty much ruled the day last November, or I should say November of 2008. That's not going to be the case this year. Well, why is this important? Well, let's look at the debt and what he's doing, one, what he's doing to seniors in this district, and two, what he's doing to the kids, our kids and grandkids. There's been a lot of talk as we look at the federal debt, and they talk about $1 trillion. And for those of you who have seen for those of you who are Glenn Beck fans, you've seen this before. But when you try to picture $1 trillion, you take a $100 bill, you get a stack of 100 of them, about so big, and that'll give you $10,000. Well, you take 100 of those, it'll make you a stack about yay high, about so wide, and come up a little bit above your ankle. Now, if you want to make that into $1 billion, you've got to take 1,000 of those. When that stacks up, that'll go on 10 pallets, about 3 by 3 by 3. If you want to look at $1 trillion, now watch where this 6-foot-tall man goes to. That's him down there. That is more money than we actually have in circulation, in print circulation today. And that's the level of debt they're putting on us and our kids. And that in itself is simple motivation enough. But also we have the issue of that, Jack wanted to bring these guys into our district, and of course he hasn't said a word about bringing Khalid Sheikh Mohammed into New York for his trial. Putting New York City back in the crosshairs again. And bringing these terrorists, the mastermind of 9/11, this guy, putting him on trial just blocks away from what he considers the greatest trophy of any Islamic victory ever. And that was the destruction of World Trade Centers. Jack hasn't said a word. But then also, for all those of us who are veterans, and for any veteran who's ever served, this is a direct insult, because we all view ourselves as having served to keep America safe. And once again, we have a president and a congressman who wants to bring these people into our backyards and put our families in danger again. And to me, that's just unacceptable. Then we have Nancy Pelosi's health care bill. H.R. 3962 is the House bill. Of course, it's going through the resolution now with the Senate bill, and they're going to try to figure out which bill is going to, which parts are going to take from each of the bills and try to come up with a new one. Jack has voted for this bill. But let's talk about some of the things it's going to do. Of course, it's going to lead to rationing. You've got lawsuit abuse protected. This bill is going to kill the private health insurance industry. And then, of course, you have not only increase in taxes, but there's a lot of hidden taxes in there already. Let me just talk about rationing. The word rationing is not actually in the bill. But what they are doing is, right now, for example, with Medicare, you've got the way they control costs are to lower what they pay to a doctor. And so if you get one in for a hip replacement, actually runs about $100,000 in terms of billing costs. You know how much Medicare pays to the doctor who does that? $700. And he has to continue that 90-day window of treatment following. Now, in order for that doctor to be able to afford to treat a Medicare patient, he has to treat so many privately insured patients. And that's in the current Medicare structure. What they've done in this bill is they continue that. They continue to control costs by lowering what they pay to doctors. That's how they control costs. They just say, well, next year we'll only pay the doctor $600 for that hip replacement. But they won't let the doctor's going to, and the hospital's going to have to transfer those costs over to the private health insurance. What they do then is they are not allowing the private insurance companies to raise their rates. So they're going to get out. And then what's going to happen is, as more and more people, as the private insurance starts going away, more and more people get into the public option, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, in order to preserve the treatment, then has the authority to lower what they pay, raise the premiums of the government option, and establish waiting list. And that's the language they use, but that is rational. And it's also going to drive many doctors out. Now, the effect of what I talked about, where they sandwich the private insurance companies, of course, they don't let them raise their rates. If you have private insurance from your employer, you're not going to be allowed to make changes to your policy, the only exception being adding a child to the policy. But any changes you want to make to that policy, you're going to lose it. And then if an employer hires a new person, they cannot provide the health care package to that person. So the whole bill is designed to drive employers out of providing health insurance and then to sandwich the private insurance industry in the middle. And the other piece of that is the lawsuit abuse. That remains protected. There's a lot of states that have made some good inroads and have actually limited. I mean, it's one thing, nobody ever argues that if you are hurt by a doctor's accident, that the doctor should pay for your further treatment to cure whatever was wrong, that he should have to reimburse you for the economic loss, that if you couldn't work and you need to support your family, that should be paid. But where it gets really ridiculous is in the exorbitant lawyers' fees, and then what they call the pain and suffering awards that are just absolutely outrageous. Now, the states that have limited that and limited those have seen their health care costs go down because one, doctors start flocking there for the lawsuit abuse protection because their malpractice insurance is lower, and there's all kinds of great effects. But what the federal bill does, it requires states to remove that language from their state laws and directly infringes on the states' rights. And so, again, you've got all the lawsuit abuse that will continue, and basically what it's going to do is end up driving doctors out. Now, there's lots and lots of things we can go on. We can spend 2 hours just talking about the health care bill, the effects, and how we can defeat it. And somebody, please remind me at the end of the presentation, ask me about how we go about defeating this bill that's currently in resolution. But let's talk about cap and trade for a second. John Murtha voted for cap and trade. It takes a sledgehammer to the coal industry. And when we look at our rich natural resources, what we have here, and America in general, when we look at the energy resources we have, we're like a person who stands in front of a buffet and then refuses to eat and insists on buying something more expensive from another restaurant. But this bill, all driven by this, this big threat of global warming, which I think we would all appreciate a little bit of right now, it